baking class, we are going to be making pumpkin parfaits or graveyard parfaits, depending on how you decorate them. So we're just going to be making the basic pumpkin parfait, which is a super delicious Halloween treat. And we're going to start with a big bowl, and we're going to put in a can of evaporated milk, a can of pumpkin, not this big, this is the big size, I'm just going to be putting in half the can, and then a container of vanilla pudding mix. Okay, so that's the first ingredients. Put these in. So this is just a regular can of evaporated milk. It's 12 ounces. And then we're going to do a regular size can of pumpkin too. If you just have the regular size can, just put the whole can in. But I'm going to do about half this can instead. So you can measure it at 15 ounces or about 1 3/4 cup. Good. Perfect. And then we're going to do 1 box of vanilla pudding mix. I use just the Jell-O vanilla pudding. Okay, and then we are going to mix all of this up. So I am going to use my electric mixer. So I always recommend putting the beaters in when your electric mixer is unplugged, just to make sure you don't have any trouble with the beaters accidentally starting when you're putting it together. And then I'm going to mix these ingredients up. Okay, so that's actually a really quick mix. You just have to mix until it's smooth and all combined. And then we're gonna be mixing up a little bit later some extra other ingredients. So I'm gonna leave the beater there, but this is gonna go into the refrigerator for about 5 minutes. Okay, so while that's in there, we are gonna be making our Oreo crumb mixture. So you can do this with any cookie that you like, right? If you want to do this with Nilla wafers or with something other than Oreo, or Oreo makes a ton of different flavors, right? Like mint Oreos and lots of flavors. So you can do it with any of those kinds of flavored Oreos too. Okay, so now if you're making the full recipe calls for 1 package of Oreos. I'm not gonna make the full recipe. So I'm just going to do like maybe 10. I'm not going to do that many. Okay, so I'm going to put in some Oreos here. That should be plenty for what I need. And then I'm going to melt some butter, and we're going to mix the butter with crushed up Oreos. So whenever we melt butter, we need to cut it into little slits, right? So normally we do the recipe calls for 4 tablespoons. But I'm just going to do about 2 tablespoons because I'm not making the full recipe, right? I'm just doing a little bit for my family. We don't need quite the full recipe for what we need. And we don't want to waste ingredients. Okay, so all right, so that is 2 tablespoons. And you can see that I've just cut it into little sections. And now I'm going to put the lid on here and put it in the microwave for 30 seconds intervals until it's melted. Okay, so while that is being mixed up, I'm going to crush up our Oreos. So I'm just using this is called the Power Chef. It's a tool that I have and I love it and it's so easy to use. But if you don't have a Power Chef, you can just put your Oreos in like a Ziploc bag and crush them up with your hands or with like a potato masher or anything like that. Okay. Okay, perfect. So now I have totally crushed up Oreos, and now I'm going to put in our melted butter. We'll see if it's melted. Okay. Yeah, so we didn't do very much better, butter, so it's already melted. So I'm just gonna dump this in, kind of spread it around a little bit in my Oreos. And then I'm gonna pull that cord again to mix the butter with the Oreos. Okay, so now I have basically a cookie crumb crust, okay? If I was making a cookie crust for a pie or a graham cracker crust, it would be the same process, right? You crumble up your graham crackers or you buy graham cracker crumbs, you mix them with butter, and now you can set that into like a pie crust, so you have a crust, right? A crumb crust. Okay, so I just have basically wet Oreos that got wet with butter. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our spoon, we're gonna spoon out a little bit of Oreo and put it in the bottom of a glass. Any glass will do. I'm using this glass because it's clear and it kind of looks fun when you see the parfait in there, but you can use any cup you want. Okay, so it hasn't been 5 minutes, but I'm gonna grab the mixture that we are making and mix in the last couple of ingredients so you can see how it all works. We are gonna mix in, okay, so I forgot my teaspoon, but we're gonna mix in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to this mixture, which gives it some great flavor. Cinnamon and pumpkin go really well together. And then we are also gonna mix in about 8 ounces of Cool Whip. So once again, I have too big of a container, okay? So this is a 16-ounce container, and we only need 8 ounces. So I'm gonna put in about half of it, and that'll be just fine. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a spatula, or actually I'll just use this spatula. It already got dirty. Okay, and put in about half of this Cool Whip. About half. And now, I mentioned that we were gonna use this again, and you're welcome to use that, but I also sometimes like to just use my spatula to mix in things like Cool Whip, because Cool Whip is actually quite a bit of air. And if you knock out all the air in the Cool Whip, it becomes really thick. You can actually beat Cool Whip to be, like if you were to beat it with beaters for a long time, it would almost be the consistency of butter. It would be really thick. So to keep it a light, fluffy dessert, we don't wanna beat all the air out of our Cool Whip. So I'm just gonna mix it with a spatula to keep it nice and fluffy and pudding-like as opposed to butter-like. And you just wanna mix it until it's a consistent color. If you want it to be a little bit of a darker color, you are always welcome to add in a little bit of food coloring, like some orange food coloring. I think this looks great. Right, so there's my pudding parfait mix. So now to make the actual parfait, we put our Oreos in. Now we are going to put in some of our pumpkin pudding mix. You can put in as much or as little as you like. I think this will be my last scoop. And then you top it, move this to the side so you guys can see. You top it with more Oreos. And now these are also called graveyard parfaits because if you are familiar with the Milano cookie, it can look like a little gravestone. Okay, so you take your Milano cookie and you melt some chocolate and you can write RIP on it or anything you want for a little gravestone. And then you can stick it in the top of your parfait and it will look like a little gravestone. So that will be posted in the recipe, the little Milano cookie decoration. So you'll be able to see what that looks like, and if you want to add that to your recipe, you can. All right, thanks for joining today. Have a good one.